Mosh pit in the 1980s was to step into a centrifuge of pure hostility. The music was abrasive, the crowds were volatile, and the environment was entirely unforgiving. In a subculture built around projecting aggression, the single most rebellious act you could commit on stage was to smile. Early New York hardcore was defined by a specific type of puffed chest toughness. The scene's heavy hitters built an exclusive club on a foundation of raw, unapproachable rage. Lou Koller and his younger brother Pete actively defied that mold. When they formed Sick of It All in 1986, they stepped out of Queens as the black sheep of a movement taking itself incredibly seriously. By maintaining that intense positivity inside an aggressive subculture, Lou Koller became a lifelong ambassador for heavy music. But at 59 years old, Lou's presence in that community came to an abrupt end. His death in July 2026 created a void that is still being felt by fans around the world. This tracks his 2-year battle with esophageal cancer. Despite grueling chemotherapy, it forced his weight from 190 down to 119 pounds. 2 inoperable tumors on his stomach created a physical bottleneck that blocked food, forcing him to rely on a feeding tube. The disease effectively silenced a man whose life was centered on the power of his voice, highlighting the urgency of preserving the message he spent 4 decades shouting from the stage. To understand that message, you have to trace his ethos back to the origin. The cramped, graffiti-covered confines of CBGB on Sundays served as the testing ground for a different kind of crowd interaction. Lou's signature tactic was physical inclusion. He routinely thrust the microphone past the edge of the stage and directly into the chaotic crowd, demanding their participation to finish the songs. When fans inevitably grabbed the mic and forgot the words, Lou never mocked them. He would laugh, flash an impish grin, and welcome them back into the fold. He made the audience the focal point of the show. That same energy lived in the band's writing. Sick of It All tracks like Push Too Far and Just Look Around were explicit warnings against class division, racism, and the local bullies who tried to tear the scene apart. Lou engineered the mosh pit into a sanctuary. Inside those rooms, the absolute highest rule of law was mutual protection. If someone falls down, you immediately stop and pick them up. Sick of It All exported that CBGB ethos across the planet. For nearly 40 years, they ground out over 100 shows a year, dragging New York hardcore onto the world stage. This meant walking out as the opening act for hostile, gatekeeping metal crowds. When they toured with bands like Exodus, audiences expected dark theatrics and were often ready to reject anything else. Lou won those crowds over by refusing to match their hostility.
He treated massive European festivals with the same intimacy as a dive bar in Queens, using unrelenting energy to pull skeptics into the performance. Yet, at the height of his status as a global icon, his final days were intimately small. As the cancer returned, he relied entirely on his brothers Matt and Pete, who provided 24-hour care in his final months. The man who spent a lifetime screaming for audiences to look out for each other was caught when he fell. The care provided by his family proved that the lyrics he sang were a lived reality. When his passing was announced, the outpouring of grief spanned the entire spectrum of modern culture. Global superstars reached out to credit him for their own success. WWE wrestler CM Punk thanked Lou for providing the soundtrack to his life, dedicating his performances to the late singer. Tributes even came from city officials. New York Council member Justin Brannan noted Lou's unique ability to make outcast kids feel seen and accepted. The diverse list of names, from world-class athletes to city officials, shows that for a generation of global misfits, Lou Koller acted as a protective older brother. Koller's work demonstrated that aggressive music can exist without toxic masculinity or isolation. He placed messages of empathy inside the abrasive framework of New York hardcore, using the distorted energy of the sound to push for inclusivity. Sick of It All called it good looking out, the belief that true friends are the ones who are physically and emotionally there when the pressure is highest. Lou Koller leaves behind 12 studio albums, but his legacy is the global community that remains. He provided a permanent reminder that in the chaotic mosh pit of life,
we have an obligation to stop and pick each other up.